I took on the Scarface name, man, because that was me, man.
Italian gangster films, especially the good ones, know how to code that feeling, how to put it in a suit, light it in gold tones, and underscore it with a Sinatra tune. And I think for Black audiences, they know how to read those codes. They know how to read between those lines. But what happens when the characters that you are relating to are the ones that you're maybe technically supposed to be afraid of? Like Tony Montana's not a good guy. Michael Corleone, the Godfather, even Tony Soprano. These are criminals. These are violent people, but they're also powerful people. And I think for a lot of outsiders, it's a familiar story because these characters see the game for what it is. They know the game is rigged. They know respect is not going to be given to them. They have to take it by force. Hi, I'm Danielle Romero. Thank you so much for being with me here on my channel where we talk about American identity and family stories. This video idea actually came from a long-time Patreon supporter. So thank you, Michael. And I'm so grateful for my patrons. I get so many suggestions for video ideas, and also it's really kept this channel going, especially during times when YouTube has demonetized my videos. It really makes a difference, and I cannot thank you enough. Why does Black America love Italian gangsters? And I mean really love them, like quote them, claim them, remix them into bigger culture.
It's one of the hottest movies ever made. This is an all-time great movie. Never seen nothing like that. I took on the Scarface name, man, because that was me, man.
You know, watch this movie 63 times. I worked the word and everything.
And I think I finally understand why. Michael sent me an article that was incredible. And it was from Vanity Fair. It's called The Outsiders, Why Black Audiences Love Italian American Screen Icons by Morgan Jerkins. I want to talk about her article. So this is totally inspired by her amazing article. This piece definitely hit me personally because I was raised Italian American on my dad's side, but I also have Black ancestry. And growing up, these were the movies that Italian American kids were really into. Everyone quoted Scarface. Everyone cried at Rocky. Everyone said, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. And I grew up in upstate New York, so you can imagine there are a lot of Italian American kids running around quoting these movies. But I never really heard anyone explain why these characters, these specific Southern Italian American gangsters, these anti-heroes, these villains, meant so much to not only the Italian kids, but the Black kids too.
Good, great job.
Andy made me his consigliere, which means assistant regional manager. I guess he thought I'd be into The Godfather because I'm Black. Wrong. I'm into The Godfather because I'm a cinephile. I like Scarface because I'm Black.
Because before this article, I thought people really just like these movies because they were cool, they were tough, they're quotable. So it's not just about gangsters either, because Rocky Balboa comes up a lot, even though Rocky's not a gangster at all. He's a fighter, he's a southpaw, he's a street-level underdog. But when you see how Black audiences talk about Rocky, almost like he's one of theirs, you start to realize this isn't a mafia thing, it's not an Italian thing, it's not a mob thing. It's about being an outsider. Italian gangster films aren't really about power, or at least not at first. It's about people who don't have any power, not any real power, at least not in the beginning. It's about immigrants, dirt poor immigrants, treated like trash, excluded from the real American dream. And as someone who grew up only knowing about really my Italian American side, these characters really resonated with me. These characters aren't respected. They speak the wrong language. They worship God the wrong way as Catholics. They build their own codes, they build their own systems, and because the main system doesn't want them, won't let them in. And I think that's the thing that's resonating across these cultural lines. It resonates because that's also the story of Black America. It had an even longer, even deeper experience with that. So when you watch The Godfather and Michael says, I'm with you, Pop, I'm with you, it hits different because it's this idea of talking about loyalty as an outsider. It's saying we take care of our own because no one else is going to take care of us. But there's a moment in Goodfellas when Henry Hill says, quote, as far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a gangster. I don't think it's because he loved crime, but because he loved what came with it. Swagger. And I think for a lot of people on the outside, that dream sounds familiar too, because it's not just about money or violence or the trappings of mob life. It's about being seen. Having power in a world that was designed to strip you of it. That feeling of walking into a room and being respected or feared if respect isn't offered. Italian gangster films, especially the good ones, know how to code that feeling, how to put it in a suit, light it in gold tones, and underscore it with a Sinatra tune. And I think for Black audiences, they know how to read those codes. They know how to read between those lines. And I think that's why Italian gangsters are quoted and put in rap lyrics. These are archetypes. These are stand-ins for people reclaiming power. It's about what people think you represent. And so Tony Montana represents the outsider who forces his way in. He's a hustler. He's a king made from scratch. He doesn't play by the rules because he knows the rules were not written with him in mind. And in her article, she quotes DJ Quick talking about Scarface. And he said, quote, "This is the greatest love story because it romanticizes the decadence and excess that is hip hop. Tony's story is this parable of ambition, of what it means to want more, even if the system's telling you you can't have it." Now let's compare that to Rocky. Same decade, same underdog arc in a way, but it's a totally different energy. We need to be honest about Rocky. That's complicated. It's a complicated story because he's the white Italian working class underdog. He's going up against an excellent black fighter, Apollo Creed, who's confident and flashy. And Rocky, he's just that broke brawler from Philly. So why do so many Black viewers love Rocky Balboa? They love him. This is not a man who is handed anything. He's scraping by. He's getting beat up. He still shows up. He loses. And even when he loses, it still feels like a win because he got the chance to put himself out there. I think for a lot of our outsider communities here in America who feel like they're getting knocked down by the system, but they keep swinging, you are going to start rooting for anyone who's scraping by like that, even if they don't look like you, even if the story isn't exactly yours because he's underestimated. He's got nothing but a turtle and a dream. But that's not just Italian. That is a stand-in for so many other groups who have struggled to achieve the American dream, not starting from the same place as other people. He just wants to belong in the ring. That's not just a sports movie moment. That is like a cultural prayer. You can be born with nothing. You can be labeled a thug, a problem, a threat, and still create your own empire, still build a legacy, still command respect. And yes, it's fiction and it's stylized. I think but what matters more, though, is what it symbolizes about our culture. I mean, that's what art is. Art is a mirror to some part of the culture that we're not really able to look at straight on. Not yet. But it's a mirror and it's warped and it's cinematic, but it's still reflective. I think for a lot of Black audiences, I do believe that they have been reading between the lines. I don't think it's about just idolizing Italian gangsters or Italian criminals. These groups have walked different roads, but the myth of the outsider, that is shared ground, is the shared experience. But what happens when the characters that you are relating to are the ones that you're maybe technically supposed to be afraid of? Like Tony Montana's not a good guy. Michael Corleone, the Godfather, even Tony Soprano. These are criminals. These are violent people, but they're also powerful people. And I think for a lot of outsiders, it's a familiar story because these characters see the game for what it is. They know the game is rigged. They know respect is not going to be given to them. They have to take it by force. And so Morgan Jerkins quotes a film scholar, Jason Boyd, and this is what he says, quote, "It's the ultimate outsider sensibility." And that's it. That's the key. These aren't necessarily role models. They're like almost revenge fantasies. It's this idea of where if you're growing up in a world where you feel like your ambition is punished, you want to watch someone who wins anyway, even for a moment. So let's zoom out. Morgan writes, quote, "Italians were not part of the white American imagination." Now, this is something we've talked about a lot on my channel. It is true. And it really resonated with me because I've heard those stories in my own family. My dad has kind of shared his own experience growing up Italian American, and the history supports it as well. The Southern Italians, they were outsiders. They were ethnic. They lived in neighborhoods for a long time with Black folks, some working the same job. Sometimes they married across the color line together. But then things changed. And Italians gave up a lot of what made them different so that they could be accepted. And they walked through that door. Then there's this moment in Jungle Fever that Morgan Jerkins brings up, when the white mob lynches Italian men who had the nerve to treat Black workers like equals. She talks about in The Godfather 2, the scene where Senator Geary is talking to Michael Corleone, and he's making fun of him. He's like, "I don't like your kind of people with your oily hair and your silk suits," dressing him down. And for the Corleones, it wasn't all about crime. It was this class performance about Italian Americans trying to imitate what was accepted in America, trying to pass, and the system still spitting them out. The tragedy of The Godfather, at least for here with Michael Corleone, isn't just the mafia violence, it's the assimilation. Because he tries to go clean, he tries to play by the rules, but in the end, those rules do not save him. You know, Tony Montana is violent. He's cocky. He's dangerous. He rises too fast. He crashes too hard. But there's a reason that Scarface got adopted, especially in hip hop. And it wasn't because he was Cuban or supposed to be Italian. It was because he refused to shrink. He didn't wait for the system to give him anything. He took it loudly, brashly, with gold chains. And I think for outsider communities who are told to stay quiet, be polite, wait your turn, Tony Montana flipped the script on that. And even though it ended badly, for a moment, he won. And he was a symbol, not necessarily of success, but of defiance. And sometimes I think that resonates more deeply than any clean hero character arc. Morgan Jerkins ends this beautiful article with this line that I've been thinking about since I read it. And she said, quote, "When these characters win, they mock the social hierarchies put in place to subjugate us." That's the core. That's what connects people to these stories. Not because these are clean stories, not because these characters are heroes, because these are characters who fight and win, even briefly, in a system designed to shut them out. These movies don't give us answers, but they give us access to that gray space in between. And I think maybe that's why they keep getting claimed. Not because they're perfect, but because they're ours too. Thank you so much for being with me. And if you'd like to watch any other videos I've done about the Italian American experience, I will leave a link here, or come over and join me at Patreon at patreon.com/NYTN.